Hey, welcome to my Warframes Where They Are Now series, a little series I've had brewing in the back of my mind since the early days of Warframe, quote unquote. I'm going to put this little intro at the beginning of every video in this series. If you've heard this once or more, feel free to skip it. This is just my opinion and is not guaranteed to be fact. Remember, with Warframe, everyone plays at least a little different from each other. That's why there's 52 frames as of making this intro, of course. That being said, I do plan on being as objective as I can with this series. But bias will always be a potential problem, and will definitely shine through in certain episodes, if not all. Now, that being said, I hope you enjoy the series. May 26th, 2023. This is one of a couple videos I'm nervous about making, I'm not gonna lie. On the upside, I can say I did learn the general opinion on Banshee is more split down the middle these days than I thought. So at least I know I'm not alone on this. Either way, Banshee fans in the comments, please be gentle, and more importantly, please actually watch the video before commenting. You may actually understand where I'm coming from. Base stats on a level 30 Banshee Prime are 125 armor, 263 energy, 300 health, 300 shields, and 1.15 sprint speed. Banshee's passive is she silences her own weapons. It fits the theme really well, but I always found this kind of weird because she's not really that much of a stealth frame. I mean, you can use her as a stealth frame, but Loki was already a thing. Just putting that out there. Banshee's first ability, it's a bit of a CC. It knocks enemies over, makes them have to get back up. I will say if they're low enough level, it will kill them. Granted, it only goes so far. It's not very strong these days, but it is decent in the CC aspect of things. Her second ability, Sonar, reveals weak points on enemies. It's random where the weak points are, which kinda sucks, but I mean, it's fine. You can spam it to unveil more areas, and they do actually compound. So if you have two of them on the same spot, you do even more damage, which is admittedly really nice, but the randomization kinda sucks, I'm not gonna lie. Her third ability makes it harder for enemies to notice you. And it also stuns them for a little bit when you first activate it, which is kind of nice. But I will say that the one thing that sucks is it's not good enough to really do spy missions, simply because, you know, the sensors will still get you, and so will those flying cameras. But it is nice if you have like a Riven challenge that requires enemies to be unalerted. So there is that, and honestly, that's not really a bad thing. Banshee's fourth ability has her screaming at the ground in anger. Hard enough to actually knock enemies backwards and act as, admittedly, one of the better CCs in the game. If it weren't for the fact that Banshee's still vulnerable in it. I honestly wish, like, that's my major complaint with the fourth ability, is I really do wish that she just wasn't exposed in it. Either that or they should add an augment where she can move during it. Actually, let me double check that real quick. I don't think there's one, but let me double check that. Alright, so I double checked, no she doesn't. However, honestly, her augment seems really interesting. I definitely gotta try that later. But anyways, yeah, no, the fact that she's exposed during it really does piss me off, especially considering, you know, how Steel Path is nowadays. But I digress. As for my build, I went for range and strength with a good amount of duration to keep my Soundquake going, as it is the ability to focus on the most. As for me having Rifle Lamp, I just haven't taken the time to reformat the Aura slot so I can use Corrosive Projection. I will eventually do that, I've been kind of lazy about it because I don't really use Banshee that much. Banshee is a frame that aged extremely poorly in my eyes. I remember when she was a goddess. Like, I remember when there wasn't many frames that you could say were better than her. Honestly, I think what did her in, well, actually I know what did her in, was Steel Path. The creation of that, as well as a lot of the high-level content, is ultimately her undoing because she doesn't scale too well into the higher levels. She's great for everything on the star chart, but once you start, you know, fucking with stuff like Kuvaliches and Steel Path and all that mess, she starts to fall apart. Granted, I have used her for Kuvaliches before, and it's not all that bad. It's kind of on the edge, I would say, like, you know, towards where she's starting to become bad. But either way, I know a lot of people are gonna, you know, shit on me for making this video, and like I said, I'm kind of nervous about making it. There's a couple other frames I'm a little bit nervous about, but I hope you can understand where I'm coming from. And here's where I'm going to talk about why I feel terrible toward her. As for sonar, I don't like that the most effective way to use it now is to spam it. I really don't. Because of the fact that it's just, why not run, especially with the Helminth, why not run like Eclipse, or, if you want to make the enemies weaker, run Terrify, There's a bunch of better ways to do it. As for Silence, I actually do really like Silence. I think it's a good ability, and honestly, it's the only reason I run her for anything these days. Editing Sindirion here. I completely forgot to mention this, but Silence is also her ability in the Helminth, and similar to Sevagoth with Gloom, it is better on other frames, so ultimately, it's not really a reason to run her for that. And like I said before with Soundquake, I don't like that she's exposed. I will say the big thing that really pisses me off, and funny enough, you guys probably saw this in my first fun video. I know that's a shameless plug, but either way, I did point this out in that video. Whereas, while it is a good CC, if any enemy is within range, you're gonna fucking die after a certain level, because she is extremely squishy. Granted, Archon Shards are going to help with that. Matter of fact, once I do Archon Shard her, I'm going to be putting, a bunch of Armor Shards and probably a Health Shard or two in there. I'm literally just going to use the Shards for tankiness, because I think that might make her more viable for Steel Path for me. Maybe. We'll have to see when we get there. That's one of those things that I have to test out. I'm sure y'all can relate to that at least somewhat. Either way, though, it does kind of hurt that Banshee aged the way she did, because I did have her in my PC days, like back before I even reached Mastery Rank 7, and I always had fun with her. And I was actually excited to get her, fun enough, yeah, I was really excited to get her Prime on Xbox, and I got it for fairly cheap, too. I got it for, I think it was 175 plat, which I know nowadays is average, but back when I got her before Prime resurgence, so she was still most frames were still quite expensive at the time. And I was like, holy shit, she must have just got back, or she must have just got out of the relics. And, no. She just, she aged. Either way, as I said, I hope you guys can see where I'm coming from with this, even if you are a fan of Banshee. I'm not saying you can't like Banshee, I'm just saying that I really don't, and here is why. But without further ado, thank you all for watching, and have a great day.